So DLT released their exclusive case knife. Now this is something that I don't know if DLT's been doing like every year, but I've only noticed like the like 3 past years that they've done it. And last year the knife was this single blade Warncliffe Trapper here in green micarta, and important to me, carbon steel. So I bought it. I didn't really carry it much because the Warncliffe is, I don't know, it feels weird with a trapper frame and a Warncliffe. And to be honest, a Warncliffe just isn't super like you. It's super utilitarian, but not in like my life because a whole bunch of what I use my knives for is food prep, which amounts to me is usually cutting tuna sandwiches in half and stuff like that, which a clip point or a spear blade or something like that is much better for. Most of these straight edged knives, I don't carry that much. The exception being my A right Barlow, that's a Warncliffe or sheep's foot, whatever you want to call it. But this year I got my wish, and DLT actually released an exclusive in this natural micarta with both the Warncliffe blade and the clip point blade, and they were both in carbon steel, which was awesome because I'm all about carbon steel. Um, so this is a single bladed trapper. You get normal clip point trapper blade, but no useless spay blade. Um, Natural micarta. I would have liked to see some sort of bone, but I'll take micarta. Micarta is like second to bone and stag and stuff in my mind because it's super durable. It will absorb. Well, actually, wood sag. This is third to wood and bone. This is absorb. That's how you pronounce that word. The oils from your hands and stuff over time, and it'll darken and change and all that. Not quite as cool as like a jigged bone or a smooth bone or a stag or something like that. But it does change over time, and I do like micarta. Um, but most importantly, carbon steel blade here from Case. Something that you don't see a whole lot is this is more of a satin finish on a blade, which Case doesn't really do, except for like their Workman series. I think most of those are kind of like it's almost like a brushed finish. Actually, it's not even really like a full blown satin. It's almost brushed. But I much prefer this over a high polish just because it's way easier to take pictures and videos of because the light here isn't completely shining out. I mean, I can make it do it, but it's not doing it all the time, whether or not I want it to. Um, but yeah, so my main problem with the case trap over the years has been I just don't need a spay blade, like ever. I like the clip blade, but the spay blade's like useless, so just kind of there. So single blade trapper, I mean, I know you can get the slimline trapper, but it's not the same. Like I much prefer this because it reminds me of like a Great Eastern Cutlery like 74. Like my I think someone called the Mustang or something. It's, way more reminiscent of something like that. Like it's a pretty big size, you can get all 4 fingers on the handle easily, really hold the knife well, and then you have a blade shape that's really useful like this longer clip blade. California clip blade. I'm not sure what we're referring to this clip blade shape as. It does appear, I don't know when this knife was made. It's stamped CS for carbon steel, but the blade, if you look here, does appear to actually be stamped and not that weird like laser etch or whatever they've been doing. So I like to see that. I'm hoping Case keeps stamping the knives and isn't completely switching to their like weird laser etch thing they've been doing. Because I much prefer a stamp. And that being said, this might have been made the same year. Let me look here. This was made, okay. So these were both made the same time, according to those Tang stamps there. So that answers some questions. This blade is from 2020, 2019. I don't know. Could be 2022, actually. It does appear like there's 2 dots missing. I'm not really sure what they're doing for their dot program, but these, according to the dot system, both of these blades were produced the same year. So that's not great evidence for the fact that Case is going to stop doing their like laser etch thing they've been doing. I much prefer a stamped tang over the laser etch thing. Um, it's gonna last, and it's more traditional and everything. Of course, I can understand why Case may want. I'm having trouble talking today. I can understand why Case may want to get away from stamping the blades because I would assume it's probably more costly, probably harder to do than just the like laser etch thing or whatever they're doing now. But I think most of us would prefer the stamped tang stamp over the weird laser etch or whatever it is. But anyway, done ranting about the laser etch. Let's close this here. The action on this knife is really good. Really good. It's like almost Great Eastern Cutlery quality. That being said, it does have some slight side to side play. Not a huge deal in my book because I'll just fix it. But something to keep in mind. Let's close the knife again so I don't cut myself. The back spring here is pretty well fit. There's just some slight gapping on this side. You can see it there. On this side, there's some slight gapping. Not the end of the world. Knife has brass liners, brass pins. There does appear to be an extra pin. I don't think most trappers have the 4 pins, so that's interesting. It's got the same shield as last year's. Mine is sunken down a little bit. I'm not the end of the world or anything, but just a slight thing there, slight mark against fit and finish there. Blade is centered pretty well actually for a traditional pocket knife. It's slightly off to one side, but I pretty much expect that with stuff like this. But yeah, the edge grind, something else that Case isn't super well known for being great at. This side and then this side. The edge grind's pretty good, it seems like. Phone. There you go. Focus in. Look at you. But yeah, so the edge grind's pretty good. Point is a little rounded off, but not horribly so. It's still pointy. It's just a little rounded off. The handles, the micarta here, looks really good. These are bare-ended. Maybe that's why they have the extra pin. Oh, that's probably why it seems like they have an extra pin. Actually, this one has it too. I just noticed that. But actually, I'm used to a trapper having a what do they call this? I'm having trouble now. I'll just call it a rear bolster. I know that's not the correct term, but that's what I'm going to call it. The rear bolster is usually here, and then this pin. So they all do have 4 pins. You just can't see the one because it's in the bolster, in the rear bolster of the knife. I'm having trouble today, if you can't tell, pronouncing things, stuttering a little bit, all that. So yeah, for some reason, I don't know why. But the knife looks really good. I really like the look of the micarta. I've always been a pretty big fan of micarta. It's not quite as good as, it's not quite as cool, I suppose, as bone or wood, but the micarta is kind of cool. And I do like the way it looks and everything. And this knife is put together fairly decently. I think this was like $75, something like that. Maybe 70. It might have been $69.99. That sounds more right. I'm going to say it was like $70. You can get it over at DLTtrading.com, obviously. Is it an $80 knife? I'll go ahead and say this specific one that I got is probably worth $80 just because mine's actually like seems to be put together pretty well. Unfortunately, with Case, there's going to be some slight variances in quality control, and you may get a lemon, unfortunately. I wish I didn't have to say that about Case, but I always feel like I have to throw that little disclaimer in there. But this one's good. The past few Case knives I've gotten have been good. So maybe they're getting better, but I mean, I might just be getting lucky too. I don't know. But hopefully they're getting better. I love Case. I went and visited the Case and Zippo Museum on a little vacation that my girlfriend and I took. And it was very cool walking around the museum and everything, looking at the history of Case and, in the heyday of Case and all that in Bradford, PA. If you ever get the chance and you're in Bradford, you like Zippos, there's slightly less Case stuff than there is Zippo stuff. If you don't know, Zippo owns Case, but there's slightly less Case stuff than there is Zippo stuff. but it's still really cool. And they have a few different like displays from Zippo and everything. So that's cool. Their store is incredibly expensive, so you probably won't buy anything there. You'll probably go home and buy it online because it'll be cheaper. But they have, some cool hats and stuff and clothes and stuff. If you want to pick up something like that, that's not quite as expensive. But they are selling all of their pocket knives for the MSRP, which is quite a bit more than any of the online retailers are selling the knives for. So keep that in mind. But still, a really cool place to check out, and I enjoyed seeing it. Um, but yeah, so this single bladed trapper DLT exclusive in natural micarta here and carbon steel, which I love. Love, love, love carbon steel. You guys know that. Um, I like the knife quite a lot. I'll certainly, I think, carry it quite a bit more than the Warncliffe Trapper, just because the Warncliffe, some people's favorite blade, and I don't understand why. But it's usable. I just much prefer something that I can use in every task throughout the day and not just opening boxes and stuff like that. I don't need a box cutter. I need a knife that can do opening boxes and everything else as well. I need it to cut my sandwich in half without getting the tip on the plate and cutting the paper plate in half because I don't do dishes. Um, but yeah, so I much prefer the clip blade. The clip blade's one of my favorite blade shapes. Clip point knives and spear blade knives are my two favorite blade shapes. Love them. Speaking of Case, I'm kind of hoping Case will release more of those Case Barlows. They have the barn board purple one that's in stainless. Purple's my favorite color, so I've been thinking about getting it, but I've been holding off. I think it'll probably be around for a little bit, but we'll see. But I'm hoping Case will do a Barlow with carbon steel, and hopefully do a couple in carbon steel so I can get one with a spear blade and one with a clip blade. But we'll see what happens. I enjoyed the 2019 Barlow run, so I'm kind of hoping they'll release a bunch more Barlows. But who knows what's going to happen at this point? Although, as far as I can tell, I think the Barlow's like completely out of the vault, and they're just going to keep making it. Hopefully, because I like Barlows. And I mean, Case is kind of known for their trappers. Everybody collects trappers and all that. This is a trapper, but I'm just not all that about trappers. Now, this is a single bladed trapper, so it's a little more my speed as far as that than the double blade with the spay blade, which you can use for spreading butter on bread and stuff. It's good for that. It's not good for much else. I don't need to castrate farm animals, so I don't really need a spay blade. I understand it had its day and everything, but I don't really need a spay blade. I'd much rather have a clip blade. Just a single clip blade is great. And then if you want to throw a secondary blade in there, give me like a pen blade, or I mean, even the case trappers that have a secondary Warncliffe blade, those are cooler than the spay blade because the Warncliffe has its place. I just don't like it to be my only blade, really. That's why Stockmans are cool because you get three different blade shapes. You usually get a clip blade, a sheep's foot blade, and a spay blade. So you have options. Having options is good. But anyway, uh, DLT exclusive single bladed trapper here in the natural micarta and carbon steel, and all of the finishing on it is satin, which I much prefer, or brushed, I guess might be the actual term here for these bolsters. But I really like these knives. They feel like they're actually made to like work these DLT exclusive trappers. Um, they made this one in a Warncliffe blade too, so if you're a big fan of the Warncliffe blade, you can still get one. Um, but for me, I'm really going to love having a single clip blade case trapper here. Um, but yeah, so that's the DLT exclusive case trapper for 2023, or at least one of them. Like I said, they did a Warncliffe one as well this year, but I wanted the clip blade version. But yeah, if you're like me and you love carbon steel and you would think about carrying a case trapper if it only had one blade, maybe go over to DLT Trading and check them out. Um, Mine's a pretty good example. But anyway, I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.